Well, the Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis and her entire office have been disqualified from President-elect Trump's Georgia election case. It's over Willis's romantic, illicit relationship to the special prosecutor she appointed to the case, Nathan Wade. The Georgia State Appeals Court did not dismiss the indictment against Trump, but Willis's removal means that it's up to the Prosecuting Attorney's Council of Georgia to find another prosecutor who wants to pursue the case. Now, President-elect Trump reacted to the news, telling Fox News Digital, quote, "The whole case has been a disgrace to justice. It should not be allowed to go any further. Everybody should receive an apology, including those wonderful patriots who have been caught up in this for years." Chief legal correspondent Shannon Bream joins us now on the couch. What is your analysis on this? Where does it all go from here?
Well, and that's such a good reminder that there are many, many other defendants who are involved in this case. President Trump, of course, gets the headlines, but many others who have either settled their issue with the case or still in legal jeopardy and limbo as this plays out. What the appellate court said was, we conclude that this lower court failed to disqualify DA Willis because the remedy that they crafted to say, we're not getting rid of a conflict of interest. We're getting rid of the appearance of a conflict of interest, saying either you have to go or Nathan Wade has to go. It says disqualification is mandated. No other remedy will suffice to restore public confidence in the integrity of these proceedings. So they're saying we don't even have to find a real conflict, but there's so much of an appearance about this. Remember talking about the payments in cash. Nathan Wade was called out for being, uncooperative and kind of, hedging and not really being forthcoming when he was testifying. And this appellate court decided there's enough of an aura here that the people of Georgia may have lost confidence in the integrity of this court.
I know certainly the American people did for quite some time. Quick follow-up, are there questions of a shelf life for this? So the indictment itself wasn't dismissed, but there's prosecutorial discretion. If the next prosecutor is like, I'm not going to prosecute this, will it still maybe live in perpetuity, or what questions can we ask around that?
Yeah, what is going to happen? Because who's the next prosecutor? Will someone want to, be excited to kind of take up this case, kind of the feeling that we got from the Fani Willis team? Or will there be so many prosecutors in Georgia who are like, this thing is a disaster and a mess, and I don't want to get involved with it? We'll have to see, but you're right. They didn't dismiss the underlying indictment, so it is still very much alive, and we'll have to wait and see where it goes next.
Well, last hour, you talked with the assistant DA. What did you learn?
Well, Phil Holloway joined me last hour, and what we were talking about was just simply, was it more than just a feeling of a potential conflict of interest and that she'd done a few things wrong? And here's what he said.
This is also about what we call forensic misconduct. There's out-of-court statements where Ms. Willis goes into the well of a local church here in Fulton County, Georgia, which is full of potential voters and full of potential jurors, by the way, I might add. And she maligns and impugns the various defendants out in a very public way. Prosecutors are not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to try their case, so to speak, on the courthouse steps, nor in the well of a church.
So what I love about talking with Phil is that he's from that area. He was a former DA. He also consults now for the sheriff's department. And so he's got a lot of connective tissue in Georgia. And so he knows the players here. And to your point, he doesn't see anybody wanting to jump up and take this case. I mean, this case, they're going to have to go through it, and they're going to show what she did wrong and the mistakes she made. Because it was more, as you heard, it was other things that were being said. It was, well, what about all those meetings with the White House with her former paramour, Nathan Wade? I mean, and what did she know of that? And how did that tank the case? I mean, they're going to have to be forensic in their own right on the job that she did. I don't know. She's already losing. Do you want to be that prosecutor? Having to look further into her just to prove that you should go after Trump again? I mean, it's really messy.
And the point about that, too, that I appreciate is, as the district attorneys that are elected are representative of the will of the people. And clearly the will of the people actually didn't quite agree with this and always thought it was insane. And then there's a constitutional argument that goes against your right to a fair and speedy trial. I mean, if someone picks up the reins decades from now, I mean, there's no justice in that. But there's clearly, as President Trump says, no justice in it from the beginning.
Well, you're touching on the politics at play, and I'll just go even further with the politics at play. Who just won Georgia in the 2024 presidential election? Donald Trump did. And so I don't imagine there are a lot of prosecutors in the state of Georgia with the turn in that state that are going to be, yeah, we're going to pick up this case and go after Donald Trump. But I also found something very, very interesting in the decision, to just follow up on what Shannon was saying. The judge said it wasn't good enough to say, you pick one of these prosecutors to go. Because Fani Willis was in the case at the outset, she had a conflict, and that conflict was shown in her decision to charge Trump in the first place and how she ultimately carried it out. And that's what this appellate court said. With that said, it was kind of an indignation of the trial court level. But let's remember, that trial court left a lot of breadcrumbs so this appellate court could ultimately rule. I got the sense that that guy was up for re-election, that guy being the judge. He did not want to basically kick out both of them, so he allowed one to stay, knowing that the appellate court would ultimately do what it did so that he could keep his job and right could be ultimately exercised by the appellate court. That's my take.
Which is why many argued he was right.
Yes.
4D chess.
We love that chess.
Yes, and why many people argued at the time that it was such a spineless decision because it was so obvious it wasn't in jurisprudence best interest. Yeah. So, look, this isn't a victory on the merits, but this is a victory for President-elect Trump. How do you see this affecting him politically as these wins that are against his back as he's getting into office in a few days?
I mean, I think all of these people have now become a political sacrifice because it was like, test the waters. Can we attack our political opponent? And you don't see public support for this. We talked about the court of public opinion earlier. You don't see anybody saying, no, 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 we have to have Fani Willis. No one coming out to her rescue.
Right. Well, no.
Everyone is done.
Not even Nathan Wade.
Yeah, well, but I mean, not even Alvin Bragg. All of these people, they haven't had huge support. It's done.
I guess I can name a few people that will likely have coal in their stocking. All right, guys, coming up, a blistering expose in the Wall Street Journal revealing just how much effort your White House put into concealing President Biden's fragility. That's next.
Jackie?
John, President-elect Trump scoring another major legal victory as Georgia's Court of Appeals disqualifies Fulton County DA Fani Willis and her office from the 2020 election interference case. The judge who wrote the majority court's ruling stating, quote, "This is the rare case in which disqualification is mandated and no other remedy will suffice to restore public confidence in the integrity of these proceedings." The court declined to dismiss the indictment, though, leaving this case in limbo. Let's bring in Shannon Bream, anchor of Fox News Sunday, and a huge legal expert whose expertise I really need to help break this down, Shannon, because it seems to me that choosing not to toss the indictment really leaves this case in limbo. And you have the president-elect saying in a statement, there's no way such corrupt people can lead a case and then it gets taken over by somebody else. It was a corrupt case, so how could it be taken over by somebody else? Does he have a point there? Because Fani Willis, at the end of the day, even though she might be removed from this, she decided what the charges were and who to prosecute.
She did, and yet what we got was an indictment, Jackie. And so what the judge said in this latest decision, at least the majority of opinion in this appellate case, he said, there's not enough here for me to get rid of the indictment, but there is this issue of her staying in charge of this case. But you're right, she was from the get-go, from the beginning, the one who was having meetings, who was gathering evidence, who was deciding, who was presenting this so that it did turn into an indictment. But what the judge said essentially was, I don't even have to find a conflict here. I don't find that based on the information, the evidence below. But what I found is there's this appearance, which is a problem. And how can people of Georgia have confidence in this system when there's so much of an appearance of a conflict that the lower court just didn't get this right? Because remember, Scott McAfee, that judge, and we covered this, all of us, for days as he was hearing evidence. What he ultimately said is, listen, there's an issue here. There's an appearance issue. And so these are your two options. Either she goes or Nathan Wade goes. Nathan Wade decided to leave, and that was the way they resolved this. But this appellate court said that's not good enough because there was so much that happened prior to that and leading up to this that she's got to step down off the case.
Fani Willis's office filed a notice to have the state Supreme Court review this decision. But this is what the judge wrote. While this is the rare case in which DA Willis and her office must be disqualified, we cannot conclude that the record also supports the imposition of the extreme sanction of dismissal of the indictment under the appropriate standard. Where do you think this state Supreme Court's going to go with this?
Well, it'll be interesting to see where they come down on this after the different reasoning we got from the trial court and the appellate court about whether they think that appearance is enough to say that she doesn't stay, but the case stays intact. Because now you have to, as you referenced earlier on, you've got to find out if there's another prosecutor within the state of Georgia who will be willing to take on this case, to take a deep dive into it, and whether, after they examine it as well, they think it has what it takes to go the distance. And remember, it's not just President Trump. We have to remind people there are many, many other co-defendants in this as well. So this is a huge group of people that are waiting, staying in that limbo and unaware of what's going to happen next. Will there be another prosecutor who wants to step into this after all of the trouble that it's had and knowing this appeal will go to the state Supreme Court too? We'll have to see.
Oh, and where does Fani Willis go after this? I mean, it seems to me it would be
Just
tough
reelected.
for her. Yeah, yes. To your point, though, Trump does still have some remaining charges in this case, including violation of the Georgia RICO Act, conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer, conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree. You know, how will this be complicated by the fact that pretty soon here, Trump's going to be a sitting president?
Yeah.
How does that change things?
Yeah, so we've had clarity over the fact that there is, there are guidelines with regard to federal charges that you don't go after a sitting president. But then, in the state level, there haven't been as clear guidelines and pronouncements. So you've got this case pending here in New York, where I am, with the Alvin Bragg case. You've got that Georgia case. And so the real questions are going to be, do they pause? Do they wait until President Trump is out of office? Do they go away? And I think with the Fani Willis case, the fact that you're going to get a totally new prosecutor potentially, that is going to be the really big deciding factor, because that person may say, after reviewing all of this evidence, I don't think it's worth moving forward with this case. Whereas it seems Alvin Bragg here in New York, in that state case here in New York, he seems pretty adamant about moving forward.
Wow. Well, certainly a legal victory for Trump, another one after a series of them. Shannon Bream, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Good to see you, Jackie.
You too.
Attorney and a Fox News contributor, and get his reaction to this. So, Leah, what is the actual status of this case, and what's your reaction to Willis and her team being removed from it?
Well, first of all, it was a big day for President Trump, and the trial judge should have dismissed or disqualified Fani Willis for the same reason, Martha. He gave Fani Willis in the district attorney's office a choice, Nathan Wade or Fani Willis. And the appellate court said, you got to disqualify both of them for the appearance. It's going to be appealed to the Supreme Court. I think the Supreme Court is going to uphold the appellate court decision. And you asked me about the status of this case. It's dead. It's dead because it was politically motivated. And I would submit to you, Martha, if you look at all these cases filed against President Trump, the Jack Smith case, the Alvin Bragg case, and the Fani Willis case, it was targeted for one reason, to stop him from running for president. It failed. In fact, he came away with winning all the battleground states, majority of the Electoral College, and a majority of the popular vote.
I think history will likely show, and upon reflection, Leo, that this pile-on of all of these cases and dozens of indictments actually helped President-elect Trump get back to the White House in a more broadly supported way, because people saw it as overkill. And now, what are they seeing? They're seeing them fall apart one after the other, with just that one sentencing and one appeal that is delayed in the first account of the sentencing, and the appeal, which we're still waiting for, in the business records case.
The uniqueness of the American government is the rule of law. And what you saw the last 2 years was an attempt to turn our legal system into a banana republic. This ruling today, along with the other rulings, shows that the rule of law is the strongest aspect of the American system of government, because it treats people fairly. Trump is getting justice now, and there's more to come. The ultimate issue, Martha, is the motivation of why these cases were filed. And I think you're going to find that out sometime next year with some form of investigation as to what motivated all these cases to come together at the same time.
Here's another soundbite from Fani Willis, which really tried to put the spotlight on race as the issue in terms of the pushback for her. Watch this.
You did not tell me, as a woman of color, it would not matter what I did. My motive, my talent, my ability, and my character would be constantly attacked. But I'm just asking God, is it that some will never see a black man as qualified, no matter his achievements? What more can one achieve?
This kind of rhetoric seems to be not settling well with people as it once did. It seems to have not worked in this environment.
If I may say, one of the most offensive aspects of the Fani Willis prosecution was to go into a house of worship and play the race card. It was offensive it was offensive to all Americans.
Well, it seems like it has not worked in her favor, that effort. Leo Terrell, always good to see you, my friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend.
Take a load off, Fani, because you're off the case. A Georgia State Appeals Court has booted Fulton County DA Fani Willis and her entire team from President-elect Trump's election case. But the indictment against Trump still stands. The court citing Fani's appearance of impropriety thanks to her soap opera-worthy affair with ex-special prosecutor Nathan Wade. Who could forget this?
I think you lied right here. No. This is the truth, Judge. And it is a lie. It is a lie. If you're confused, you think I'm on trial. These people are on trial for trying to steal an election in 2020. I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial. A man is not a plan. A man is a companion. As you know, Mr. Wade is a Southern gentleman. Me, not so much.
So, Judge, the whole team gets kicked off the case, but the case still stands.
Yeah, I have a feeling the case is going to disappear. They have several options. I mean, the court made the decision to throw her off, throw, her team off, throw the office off. And in a case like that, it may go to another office within that particular region. Maybe the chief administrative judge will do that. But honestly, I just don't think that a prosecution of a sitting president, if they have to start ab initio from the beginning, it makes any sense now. But I just want to talk about that woman. That woman is an embarrassment to me. For her to walk into that courtroom like that, as if she's in charge, pointing her finger at the judge and everyone else, she would have been taken out in the paddy wagon, okay? I would never have tolerated that in a courtroom. That means it's like a circus down there, end of it. That's it. The whole case should be thrown out. They were corrupt, $654,000. She gives her lover, he takes her on vacation. Then she says, I really gave money back, but it's from the cash. Where the hell did you get the cash? You work for the state. That's all I have to say.
So, Jessica, back in June, Fani Willis claimed that the reason her case was falling apart is because she's a black woman. It doesn't really kind of, when you look at it now, in retrospect, it doesn't. That argument doesn't really kind of hold up, does it?
Seemingly not. Sometimes it's not what's best to lead with, and there has been disappointment, obviously, in her handling of all of this and her team, especially because there was such clear evidence in the indictment, Donald Trump calling Brad Raffensperger up and saying, find me, thousands of votes that I didn't earn.
Well, it wasn't quite like that.
Or Trump allies pushing conspiracy theories.
Don't conversations about the election.
You haven't heard the evidence.
What?
Which is not illegal.
Okay, well, what Rudy did, let's say, to those election workers. What he owes like $148 million or something like that. Okay, so those are real things that happened. And obviously, people are going to do whatever possible to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't face these trials. Eileen Cannon throwing aside that case again, not because of the evidence, but because she says that Smith
she followed the law.
Well, then why are there special counsels that have been appointed in other situations?
She followed the law.
But why have there been other special counsels appointed, but Jack Smith is the one that's a problem?
Because he's nuts.
Oh, it's the nuts defense. I think I'm done.
They told me to let you finish.
That's
why I used one word.
I appreciate it. Whoever said that, Amy, it was probably you.
No, it was Brett.
Oh, Brett.
So, Jesse, all of this comes out as more and more evidence kind of piles up that shows there really was a connection between the Biden White House and these prosecutions all over the country.
So they're suing Fani to turn over the emails that show that she was in cahoots, and she won't turn over the emails. And she's probably stupid enough to write down colluding with the White House. So she's hiding it, and she's going to be held in contempt if she doesn't turn this over. I mean,
it's with the cash in the box.
So I'm looking forward to that. She was runner-up to Trump for Time Person of the Year for me. The shamelessness, the poor grammar, the poor pronunciation, the inability to grasp basic geography. I think she only has two routes for the career now. She could either be mayor of Atlanta or a Real Housewife of Atlanta, because she has all of the qualifications. And I'm gonna miss Fani. I loved her. Not in that way, Jessica, but not in that way, Jessica. Not the way Wade did, but I appreciate Fani from a television perspective.
Maybe she gets a pardon. We'll see. But
from Biden?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But it is kind of interesting. All of this is playing out at the very moment where President-elect Trump wants to start cleaning house at DOJ. This kind of gives him an upper hand in all that.
Absolutely. And imagine being Fani Willis. She thought that she was going to be a part of the takedown of Donald Trump. And she orchestrates the case and gets the mugshot. And she thinks, oh, yeah, now the mugshot's going to take him down. And the mugshot makes him more popular. Then she was kicked off her own case for criminal activity. I mean, honestly, Shakespeare could not have written it better.
You are so right.
It's so true. I have always believed that if Shakespeare were still alive today, Donald Trump would be his favorite character. He would rewrite all of his plays, all of his histories, all of his comedies, and Donald Trump would be like, he'd be from King Lear all the way to Falstaff, and he would love it.
Falstaff.
Wow, look at that. Shakespeare.
Yes,
Woo.
he would love it.
Impressive.
I wish more of the press
Women are
loved it.
swooning out there.
Correspondent Madison Scarpino has the latest tonight from Atlanta.
The state of Georgia already promising to fight an appeals court decision disqualifying the Fulton County District Attorney's Office from prosecuting the election interference case against President-elect Trump and his co-defendants. As of now, Fani Willis and her entire office are off the case, but the indictment itself still stands. The court said in today's ruling the relationship between Willis and her former special prosecutor Nathan Wade had a, quote, significant appearance of impropriety. You may remember earlier this year when Willis's romantic relationship with Wade was exposed, causing a halt in the case. Wade stepped down per the judge's orders. The court said, quote, after carefully considering the trial court's findings in this order, we conclude that it erred by failing to disqualify DA Willis and her office. Trump's attorney, Steve Sato, says in part, quote, as the court rightfully noted, only the remedy of disqualification will suffice to restore public confidence. This decision puts an end to a politically motivated persecution of the next president of the United States. But since the appeals court did not drop the indictment altogether, the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia has the ability to find another prosecutor to take over the case. But legal experts tell us they believe that is unlikely.
They'd have to shut down their whole office, and they'd have to, just for this case, basically shut down all of their operations. They would have to redo everything that she did and try to fix the problems that she created. It's not going to happen.
We reached out to the Fulton County DA's office, and they haven't gotten back to us. And while the state has already filed a notice of appeal to this ruling, they now have 20 days to file a formal appeal. Brett?
Madison, thank you.
Okay, that was such a fun day. I remember that day watching her testify. All indignant as she marches in. Joining me now, David Schoen, former Trump impeachment attorney, and Horace Cooper, Project 21 chair. All right, David, Fani is off the case. But we were told, David, and I believe you were on the program at the time, we were told that she had she came highly recommended, was of impeccable and serious credentials, and this case was a serious case. Like everything else we're seeing on Capitol Hill, the border, on down, the truth is slowly coming out.
Yeah, she's brought shame to the office, quite frankly. This case has to be dismissed. The Court of Appeals today got it right in disqualifying her and her office, but they should have dismissed the case. It's going to have to be dismissed eventually because of official act immunity and presidential immunity, given the election now. But beyond that, focusing on this issue today, it has to be dismissed because of her role with the grand jury. The Georgia courts in the past have said the grand jury is the primary security against malicious, hasty, and oppressive persecutions by the state of Georgia. That since colonial times, it's been the primary security for people. Its independence is important. The Supreme Court spoke about it in Dionisio. We can't have outside influence. She had the motivation at the time to advance Wade's career, her career, political motivation. Remember, this case started with that sham so-called civil grand jury that was advisory when the foreperson was talking to the press. All of that business. The court has to dismiss this case one way or another.
All right, to that point, other counties, though, could take up the case. Apparently, Forbes reporting that Democratic prosecutors in Georgia's DeKalb and Cobb counties would likely be the best equipped to take up the case, but it's not clear whether they would want to or if they would be chosen to take on the case. Horace, I think that's kind of unlikely, but I do like the fact that her race baiting on this case utterly failed, totally failed.
Well, I've been blogging about this on Twitter or X since February of this year because it has been astonishing how embarrassingly poor her performance is, her legal capabilities, her leadership of the district attorney's office. And then we got to see this whole sordid affair. Here's the real story. These other district attorneys are going to have to ask themselves, are they willing to take on this pathetic, sad case that never should have been brought forward and use their communities, their counties' resources to pursue it? Miss Willis apparently has had a free rein to misuse the resources in her county as maybe she thought she could get away with. These other district attorneys are not going to have that kind of leeway. I don't think they're going to touch this with a 10-foot pole.
No, and maybe she shouldn't be giving speeches in churches about a case that she's involved with next time. That might have been a good way to go. David and Horace, both of you, thank you so much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.